This is Dr. Rob Harder with the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast, Making Your World Better. What does it take to be an effective nonprofit leader today? What are the biggest challenges? What are the biggest obstacles? How should nonprofits fundraise in an economy that is constantly changing? All of these reasons combined led me to start this show. And it's my hope that through this series, people can learn not only what it takes to be an effective nonprofit organization, but to hear from effective leaders who are successfully making a positive impact in their communities. We hope you enjoy the show as together we hear how they are making their world better. Hello, podcast listeners. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Hey, to start out with, I want to let you know, some of you have asked about this. We do now have a YouTube page for the podcast. Now, we've had it for a while, but I just haven't advertised it much. Wanted to make sure you were aware of that. You can just head over to YouTube and look up Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. All of the great content that are on these shows, of course, that whether you listen to Spotify or iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts, the same content will be on the YouTube page in video form. Plus, there's some additional videos. So I encourage you to go to YouTube, check it out, be a subscriber. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. And then let us know. Give us some comments, what you think about the podcast, the guests that we have, all that good stuff. So check out Nonprofit Leadership Podcast on YouTube. Okay, today. So did you know? Start with a question. Did you know that there's 32 different types of nonprofits? I know, way more than I thought initially as well. Until I went into this podcast interview and did some research, I didn't realize there were so many. And now for the vast majority of, my guess is most of you that are listening to this show are part of an organization that's considered a 501c3. That's where most NGOs, nonprofits, charities, they fall into that category. And in fact, by a large margin, they're the largest percentage of nonprofits. However, there's some other nonprofits out there. And the one sector, if you will, within the nonprofit sector that we're going to look at are the 501c8 organizations. And with us to talk about that is Mike Lee. He's got an organization called 501c8 Impact Initiative. And he basically wants to make sure everyone knows about what these 501c8s have to offer. There's a tremendous amount of benefits that come with being a part of a 501c8 that I had no idea about. And my guess is you didn't either. So it's a really interesting show. And I think you'll learn some new things about a different nonprofit that you maybe had no idea about. Well, thanks again for tuning in. Now on to the show. This podcast is sponsored by DonorBox. DonorBox, helping you help others with the best donation forms in the business. Great to have you on the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast.
Hey, man, Rob, thank you so much for just having me. It's a pleasure. You guys have been doing incredible work in the nonprofit space for so long. So it's a pleasure just to be here.
Well, thank you. Always good to have someone on that really loves the show. I'm glad it resonates with you. It's a helpful tool. That's always been my hope with the podcast. So glad to have you on the show.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, so for my listeners, normally we have leaders on the show that are part of organizations that most people think of as the typical nonprofit organization, which is a 501c3. Now, I don't know if you know this or not. I'm talking to my audience here. There are up to 32 different types of nonprofits. People have no idea that there's that many nonprofits, but there are. There's 32 technically different nonprofits. Now, typically there's about 5 that we mostly talk about. The one we're talking about today is one that you may had no idea that's kind of a separate own entity, if you will. It is a nonprofit, but it's not a 501c3. It's a 501c8. That's going to be the topic we're going to talk about. And here on the show, as I mentioned, Mike, this is kind of your expertise. And so as Mike reached out to me, I thought this will be really fun because we've never had anybody talk about 501c8s, and this is kind of your specialty. And so to be able to get a real inside scoop on how this works is wonderful. So let's just start out with that. Why don't you, to get my listeners familiar, talk about what is a 501c8? How does it differ from other nonprofits, specifically 501c3s?
Yeah, so it's funny, man. About 8 years ago, I found out about this. We've all heard 501c3s. Our churches, our schools, our charitable organizations, they do incredible work, but that 3 in the 501c3 is simply a type, as you were mentioning, Rob. And we work with 501c8 entities. Now, before I dive deep into what a 501c8 entity is, let's go back to the beginning. What is a 501c1, right? So a 501c1 is a not-for-profit bank. We call them federal credit unions. So we were always told growing up, hey, listen, if you're going to buy a house, if you're going to buy a car, establish a good relationship with a credit union because they have the lowest fees, they have the best interest rates, they got the new home buyer seminar. And it's been incredible advice, but we never knew why they had those programs. The reason they have those programs is because they're not for profit. And for them to maintain their not for profit status, they're required to give their members exclusive member benefits. So we always think, oh, wow, Navy Federal Credit Union, for example, is absolutely incredible. The people are great. Well, yeah, great people down in Navy Fed. I love them all. But if they want to maintain their not for profit status, they're required to give you these programs. And the cool thing is about banking is it doesn't matter how much money you have in your bank. It doesn't matter if you have $50 or $50,000. As long as you have an account, right, you are considered a member and you can take advantage of all the member benefits. Okay. So we don't work with 501c1s. I always just use that as a reference point because everyone knows what a bank is. Everyone knows what a credit union is. We work with 501c8 entities, and 501c8s are not for profit life insurance companies. Okay. So you have for profit life insurance companies like our State Farms, our MetLifes, our New York Lifes. Those companies pay tens of millions of dollars for us to remember their slogans, like a good neighbor.
Yeah, exactly.
You know the rest.
There you go. Nice job. You're doing that well.
Been doing it for a while. But yeah, man, they pay tens of millions of dollars just so we can remember who they are. So that price, that overhead actually gets passed down to the consumer. It's going to be naturally more expensive. Okay. Also, they have shareholders to appease. You can go and buy State Farm stock right now. Not a bad buy. Not a bad buy. They've been around forever. They have credibility. Everyone's going to die. Like everyone needs it. However, on the not-for-profit side, 501c8s, they're called fraternal benefit societies. Okay. They are not for profit life insurance companies. And number one, because they're not for profit, they're not going to advertise. They're not going to be on television and say, hey, y'all, here's how you access all of our money.
Yeah, right.
They're just not going to do it. Okay. Number two, they're going to be cheaper than our big name companies, State Farms, MetLife, US, they're just going to be cheaper because they don't have that overhead. But number three, just like the banks, they have programs that all their members can access. Okay. And it's not low fees and good interest rates. It is scholarship money, literally hundreds of scholarships they give away. It's grant money, right? It's online learning courses. It's discount clubs. I mean, it is a laundry list, and we're going to dive all the way into it. But these are programs that are completely free by simply having a life insurance policy with a 501c8 not-for-profit life insurance company. So who am I talking to? Of course, I'm talking to your leaders, right? But I'm also talking to the parent inside of it, right? I'm also talking to the teacher and the philanthropist and the person that really has a heart to give. There are resources that we can be tapping into to actually do some of these things. So I'm excited to dive in.
I love it. Well, it sounds good. Well, let's go into it. I understand part of what is involved with the work you do in regards to community grant programs. Talk more about that. What are the most impactful programs and services offered by these 501c8 organizations, and how do they directly contribute to the community well-being and individual empowerment?
Yeah, so there's literally a laundry list of them. And our favorite, especially when we're talking to nonprofit organizations, is to talk about the community grants. Okay, this is how the grant process works. Very much like banking, it doesn't matter how much money you put into it. It doesn't matter how big or small your life insurance policy is, just like it doesn't matter how much money you got in your Navy Fed account. As long as you're a member, you're a member. But they have 3 different grant programs. The first grant is called a CARE grant. Okay. And it is something simple. It's low hanging fruit. It takes literally 2 days to get approved. It's $200. It's twice a year. Not a lot of money, but it is something that you can do for people. Okay. And what do a lot of people do with those? Book bag drives, coat drives, feeding the homeless, getting out there, outreach, just becoming aware of different things that's out there. There's a second grant called the community grant. Now, this one, Rob, is $2,000. And you can apply for it 3 times a year. So you're talking about $6,400 that you can access, right, by simply having a life insurance policy. And I'm just telling you, like the amount of outreach and the amount of things that we've done, like not only the book bag drives and the coat drives and feeding the homeless and dealing with the elderly, we also do things for the youth. We do hygiene kits, we do construction projects, we do Build-A-Bear projects, beautification projects. I mean, and because you guys are in the nonprofit space, you can pretty much do anything you want. The only criteria is you have to associate it with a 501c3 nonprofit organization because you're serving as the middleman. A lot of people ask me, Rob, well, do I have to be a nonprofit organization? No, you don't. Okay. An individual has to have a life insurance policy, and that individual can go out and access these resources.
No, that's great. Okay, good. Now we're going to keep diving into this then. Give an example of a successful partnership between a 501c8 organization and other nonprofits, and how have these collaborations really amplified community impact?
Yeah, we have a ton of successful examples. There is a nonprofit organization in Atlanta called Dope Dads, and we've collaborated with them numerous times where they're just really bringing, awareness to what they're doing. Like when it comes to the nonprofit space, the reason we don't get the contributions and the support that we don't usually want to get is because people just don't know who we are.
Right, right.
They don't know we exist. So Dope Dads, for example, they use this as an outreach. They use this to go out into the community and say, hey guys, we're doing a book bag drive. We know that this is the week after Thanksgiving where it gets real in the homeless community again. And it's resources that people can access. There's another organization called the Wave Foundation. They're in Richmond, Virginia. And they did a nationwide backpack campaign this at the end of the summer. And it was in like 9 different cities where they're saying, hey, on this day, we're going to have a backpack drive where people can come down and access these resources. They filled the backpacks with pens, papers, notepads and things like that. There's another organization called A to the Third. They're based here in the Washington, D.C. area. And literally maybe every 3 to 4 weeks, they're doing something.
Wow.
They have a board. Multiple people on their board are members of 501c8s. So they just take turns. They have a list
That's
of different
perfect.
things.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, like, it's ridiculous. And I go to their meetings all the time and I'm like, hey, have you guys thought about this?
Yeah.
Let's get creative with
Absolutely.
this
There's lots of options. Okay.
It's a lot of options and literally tons of schools, tons of churches, tons of nonprofit organizations. We do it all.
That's great. Excellent. Okay. So you're already getting into this a little bit, but as you know, as I mentioned before the show, most of my listeners are part of a nonprofit 501c3 organization. Talk to me about how their organization perhaps can take advantage of these programs. You mentioned personally, like you get a life insurance plan, for example. How else does it work? Give us kind of the nuts and bolts of if someone's interested, maybe they could sign up today, or sign up this week and find out, hey, I never knew that these even existed. So what would the next steps that you would recommend?
Yeah, so it literally is that simple, and I have this conversation all the time. People say, well, what else do I have to do? And I say, nothing.
That's pretty nice.
Have a life insurance policy. So think about it like this. If I bank at Bank of America, I can't go down the street and take advantage of Navy Federal Credit Union's member benefits because I'm simply not a member. All I have to do is just take out an account, right? Just open up an account. That makes me a member. And now I can take advantage of all the programs. What we see a lot of nonprofit organizations do is they get a life insurance policy. Number one, we could probably save you money because for-profit companies, they overpay, they overspend. They charge this, I don't want to say outlandish amount, but it is definitely more expensive, for the life insurance policy. But all people are really getting is a death insurance policy, right? There's a huge difference between price and value. Price is what you pay. Value is what you get. So if someone's life insurance policy is simply giving them a death benefit, like why? Why? And granted, I have for-profit life insurance policies. I have not-for-profit life insurance policies because life insurance is simply buying money for your family. But if people are a part of a nonprofit organization, and I tell them, listen, just tap into it. You can contact me, whatever. I'm easy to get a hold of. But think about the impact that you can have in your community without taking every dollar out of your back pocket. All the nonprofit organizations that I talk to, they have a board, right? And there's 2 things that they want this board to accomplish. Either one, give me your time, or number 2, give me your money. It's that simple. I need your time or your money or both. And this simplifies the second aspect of that, because sometimes people just don't have the money. Great people, great cause, just don't have the money. But this makes it so simple. It's such low hanging fruit, and I'll show you some other programs that's low hanging fruit by simply being a member. But it's such low hanging fruit that anybody can access it. And we'll teach you. Like we have calls every Friday, going over everybody's benefits. Hey guys, catch the Friday call, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll go through every single benefit and we'll slow down on one of them to kind of dive deep and say, look, for example, they got a scholarship program. They give away 355 scholarships every single year.
Wow, that's a lot.
Think about how many of us are shopping in the same pond, fishing in the same pond for
Totally.
school, right? Hey, senior 2024, it's common. But there are programs, right? There's 355 scholars. They're $2,500 each, renewable, right? So, and now I'm talking to my nonprofit friends, like low hanging fruit, right? At least kick the tires, see what it's like, see if we can save you money. If we can't save you money, there's a ton of people that says, you know what, I'm just going to get a little bit of insurance so I can take advantage of all the programs. And that's completely fine because these companies, they have to do this to maintain their not-for-profit status.
Got it. Yep. They're required. That's really a good distinction to make. We'll be right back. Are you looking for an easy and effective way to boost your nonprofit's donations? Look no further than DonorBox, the online fundraising platform that streamlines your fundraising efforts, maximizes donations, and simplifies giving for your supporters. With DonorBox, you can create beautiful donation forms, accept digital wallet payments, track donations, and send auto receipts. And the best part? There are no setup or monthly fees and no long-term contracts required. So what are you waiting for? Visit donorbox.org today to get started. That is donorbox.org. Hey friends, and thanks so much for listening to the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. I want to let you know that I've recently become a professional certified coach. With my nearly 30 years of nonprofit experience, I know firsthand how hard you work as a leader. I also know how important it is to have someone you can call on to get help with the barriers, the leadership challenges that you will face both professionally and personally. And I really want people to thrive, to become all they were meant to become by providing coaching and consulting services. So if coaching is something you've always been interested in, but maybe weren't quite sure what it was all about, I encourage you to reach out. You can go to my website, robharder.com, or just email me at rob@robharder.com. I would happy to provide a free sample coaching session so you can determine if coaching is for you. All right, thanks again for tuning in. Now back to the show. Now, as you know, this podcast really is all about leadership, the leadership of nonprofits specifically. When it comes to leadership of 501c8s, obviously the purpose is a bit different, the mission's a bit different, but is the leadership all that different? Talk to me more about that experience of what you've found versus 501c3s on the one hand and 501c8s.
The leadership is not different at all, Rob. I'll be honest with you. We all have a passion to give back. We all know that we've been placed here for a very specific reason. And we all know that we're all going to get up out of here at some point, but the time between the time that you're born and the time that you pass away, that line in between is filled with passion for a lot of us. It's filled with purpose. We find people that believe in what we believe in. So the leadership is the exact same. They're always coming up with new programs and benefits to make sure that their members can access different things. For example, they recently came out with a tuition reimbursement program. So for those of us that want to go back to school and get a certification, or maybe it's a professional license that we need to get, they will reimburse up to $1,000 for that.
That's amazing. There you go. More money.
It's ridiculous. They recently came up with a program. It's called Member Deals, where it's like a discount club, where there are thousands and thousands and thousands of things that people can get discounts on. 60% of Sam's Club right now. 85% off of Microsoft Office lifetime suites, 45% off of movies, tickets, hotels, rental cars, shows. It's literally thousands of things. So I pick a category and I can tell you something that's advantageous, but they're always catering these different things to the people. One of the things that I've noticed about the leadership with 501c8 entities is they're always reaching out to the end user, right? Think about how many board meetings we go to or how many companies they say, okay, guys, well, let's get together and let's figure out what we want to do. No, 501c8s, they're always trying to figure out what does the end user need, So it's incredible. I think the leadership is right on par with what you guys are all doing.
I love that. No, that's wonderful. Good. Well said. Okay. Now, when it comes to the biggest challenges facing nonprofits, now we kind of broaden out, not just 501c8s, but just in general. You've had a lot of experience with nonprofits. What are those big challenges you think that we are facing now as nonprofit leaders today? And maybe how can we get through them and mitigate them as much as possible?
Here's the big thing, Rob. People don't know what they don't know. And if no one knows who we are, right? If no one knows that we're here to actually help our communities in whatever aspect we're choosing to help, then our outreach is limited. Think about some of the larger nonprofit organizations that we've all heard of, the Children's Miracle Network, right? The Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure. I do work with all of these companies, right? But what you'll notice is they've been around forever. And their outreach endeavors and their outreach plans are massive. They want to be all over the country. Why? Because just like any other thing, it takes 7 or 8 touches for people to really have a solidified understanding of what you're trying to accomplish. And in today's society, I mean, you can just go on your phone and start scrolling, and the philanthropic side of us that we all have this intuitive thing to give back. We just have it. It is what it is. The philanthropic side of us, we don't get to scratch that itch. And the reason is because we don't know what organizations are out there that can actually be helping us scratch that itch. Now, the thing that I love about 501c8s is because these organizations do outreach and volunteer and community events and things like that, that's how we package it. It's like, hey, listen, we're going to do a book bag drive. Let's get in front of the community and let them know what we're doing. Let them know how we're helping, because that brings optics to what we're doing. And here's the reality, Rob. People don't join things. People join people that have things. People don't join nonprofit organizations. People join the people, right? People fall in love with the people.
So right. Well said. 100%.
So we just need to get in front of the people and give them the opportunity to fall in love with what we're doing. That's the biggest thing.
Well said. I couldn't agree with you more. I've told that to leaders as I do consulting and coaching. Obviously, you have your mission, you have your organization's, primary vision. But at the end of the day, when people get behind you, they join you, they come on staff, they volunteer for you, they donate to your organization, they're buying into you at some level, to your people, to your team. And so you've said it really well. Now, we think about 501c8s again. What do you see, or how do you see the role of a 501c8 evolving, say, to meet future community needs? Obviously, it seems like they're wired and set up to meet the community needs, and they have these community grants, as we mentioned, all these other benefits. Do you see it evolving in the next 5, 10, 20 years?
You know what? I do see it evolving. I really do. And here's how. Conversations like this, like they built these programs for us, for the people that want to run nonprofit organizations and want to give back. They literally built it for us. But again, people don't know what they don't know. And 99% of people have never heard of a 501c8. Why would they have heard of it? Think about how sharp you guys are and your listeners are if you haven't heard of it.
Good point.
Most people haven't heard of it. Even the life insurance agents that's providing life insurance, most of those people haven't heard of it, right? These are companies, they're not small. They're worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. They've been around for over 100 years. Some of them even over 150 years. They're A-rated, so some people say, well, what about, are they, just as good as a State Farm? No, they're just as good. There is a company called AM Best that rates every life insurance company in America, okay? Life insurance companies are bigger than the Better Business Bureau. They just are. Most times when someone's complaining about a life insurance company, they're not complaining about the insurance company. They're complaining about the agents who didn't do their job. You know what I'm saying? So AM Best, A-rated, 20 years straight. These companies are credible, but no one knows about them. So the evolution comes with the education. One does not come without the other. It comes with the education.
I love that. Well, okay, so as you kind of envision this sector, do you envision it growing? Like, do you think that more and more people, as the word gets out, we have conversations just like this, as you mentioned, do you feel like this is something where you see more insurance companies offering to go more of the 501c8 route? Or do you still see this staying small until it really becomes like second nature to go to one of these companies versus a State Farm, for example? What do you see like in terms of the scope and the size and how quickly this sector would grow? Or do you feel like it's going to just level out?
You know what? To be honest with you, a lot of it is going to level out because these companies have been established for over 100 years. Like they made the decisions before our grandma's grandma was born, and, they've been there. They're just kind of sitting there waiting, twiddling their thumbs, hey, we're here. Now, granted, we're not going to get on the television and tell everybody we're here. They're doing fine, but honestly, the companies that are established, they're going to be there. And it really wouldn't make sense for a for-profit life insurance company to swap over to not-for-profit because there's a lot of money in for-profit life insurance. You got shareholders that you have to appease. With not-for-profit life insurance companies, you don't have shareholders. You actually have what we call members, right? You don't even have, they don't even call them policyholders. They call them members because you get member benefits, right? So it's really just bringing awareness to this category. And I can't even tell you, like, Rob, like they even have a program where they write people's wills for free.
Oh my gosh.
Attorney.
Who knew? That's incredible.
Directives. Like it is literally a laundry list of programs. They have a parental guardian program where if mom and dad passes away, and think about how many times we see grandparents permanently taking care of the kids. There's always going to be a story there. We're just never really sure what it is. But if mom and dad pass away, they will pay child support, $900 per month.
Oh my goodness.
Per child of child support to the legal guardian. I have 2 children, Rob, 5 and 2. And they like nice things like running water, clothes, like they like the basics. But if my wife and I pass away, guess what? It's going to be very difficult. My mom is going to retire next year. She's going to be making less money, not more money. But if something was to happen to the guardians of my children, right? It's an issue. So that $1,800 a month, right? For those children. And then the crazy part is when they turn 18, they automatically get $24,000 for college.
Oh my goodness. Wow. No way. Wow. Okay.
A lot of you not. So again, this is why we do what we do, is because there's so many resources that we can be accessing, but we just don't know.
Exactly. Well, this is so good. Well, Mike, I have a feeling my listeners are going to want to find out more because of all the benefits you've mentioned. How can they find out more about you and then also about the company that you run?
Yeah, so you can always go to www.501c8.org/podcast, right? We'll make it real simple for you so you can find us. Okay, you can book a time and I'll talk to you directly. If you guys want my phone number, like I said, I'm easy to access, 703. Write this down.
That's awesome. Please. Hey, way to go. You're bold.
Dude, I've helped so many nonprofit organizations get funding that was unexpected. Unexpected money is always a good thing. I've helped so many schools, so many churches, so many small people that what I call them is broke philanthropists, right? We don't have the money, but we kind of want to do something awesome. We would love to give to that homeless, to that homeless shelter or those people that we always see on the street. But the way our checking account is set up is like, But no, you can contact me. Again, I'm Mike Lee. My number is 703-932-5057. I've been doing this for a long time. I will do this for a very long time. I'm passionate about helping people. Both of my parents were ministers, Rob. My dad passed from COVID, but my mom, she's still helping out. She's still doing her thing. So it's embedded in me to want to give back to the different communities that need it. And the nonprofit, if I can empower people, if I can teach people how to fish, right? Now we're on to something big. Now the whole thing is being run properly.
Yeah. Well, I love your enthusiasm. I love all the things you just shared. And Mike, thanks for all you're doing. Thanks for the community good that you're offering. Really appreciate you taking time to be on the show today.
My pleasure, Rob. Thank you guys so much for your time. We love you, Rob. Thank you. Just keep doing this, man. Don't ever retire. I know it's a lot to ask. The world needs you, brother.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind. Hey, friends. Well, I wanted you to know that this podcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts, and wherever you listen to other podcasts. I also want to encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with others. This will actually help us get this great content out to more nonprofit leaders just like you. You can also join the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast community, find other resources and interviews of past guests, all on my website, nonprofitleadershippodcast.org. Well, thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep making your world better. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. Go to YouTube and look up Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. We'll see you there. This podcast is sponsored by DonorBox. DonorBox, helping you help others with the best donation forms in the business.